Hey there, this is Taylor Ursula of That's So Pisces, and it's time to look into this cazimi Gemini third quarter moon. So let's do it. So, as I stated a moment ago, this is a third quarter moon in Gemini ruled by a Mercury retrograde in Virgo that is meeting up with the sun on the same day. So, we might have a lot of clarity at this point. I talked last week at the Pisces full moon about how we were starting to get some of those answers, starting to get some of the big picture idea of what we've been going through, okay? So with this cazimi third quarter moon in Gemini, which is also square to this moon, since it's in Virgo, we might be really clear right now on what we're done with, what we can put away now, right? We've had a lot of different plates spinning. We've had a lot of different possibilities in the air. We talked last week about how Jupiter stationing retrograde just after the full moon while ruling the full moon was maybe allowing us to get clear on what plates aren't really for us, what plates we thought we wanted, what plates we expected to have. And so now at this third quarter moon, with this cazimi clarity, we might be really firmly pushing some things away, getting done with some options we thought were still open-ended, really compelled, catalyzed, especially because again, we're square to that, this moon in Gemini rather will be square to the Mercury cazimi that's taking place in Virgo. So because of this square, this intense energy, this push, this drive to be free, to be clear, right? And I love thinking about the square between Gemini and Virgo. What we learn in Gemini compels us to take action in Virgo. What information we gather in Gemini, we begin to put into practice, we begin to test in Virgo. And so this is a time where what we've tested in Virgo, what we've been testing and retesting, is now allowing us to kind of clear out some old data. Maybe we're clearing out a cache of some kind, whatever that looks like for you in the Gemini part of your chart. We're done with some information. We're done with some stories. We're done with some ideas. We're ready to stop having conversations about some things, right? It's a third quarter moon, so we're releasing in advance of the Virgo new moon that we're going to have coming up. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that last week we had a little conversation about Jupiter entering retrograde and kind of allowing us to close, narrow down the spectrum of what are opportunities, what are possibilities, what have I expected, what have I been promised, etc., etc. Getting clear on what that might actually narrow down for us moving forward. That is something that allows us to step into responsibility / opportunity in a way that we feel good about kind of demonstrating outwardly, modeling for others, or socially, right? It's a social planet. So whatever Jupiter brings us in some way connects us with whatever social role or relationship or responsibility or like mentorship that we provide. So something about this Jupiter is involved in this third quarter moon lunation. Mercury retrograde in Virgo will move into a trine to Jupiter retrograde in Taurus, leading up to this third quarter moon. Then Mercury moves into the cazimi with the sun. And after this third quarter moon, the sun will enter into a trine to Jupiter in Taurus, currently retrograde. So it's sort of like whatever Mercury connects with Jupiter about, which is kind of expanding some of what we are reframing right now, is brought into this lunation, brought into the sun, and the sun then meets Jupiter a couple days later to kind of integrate this process, to show us what it looks like to start becoming whatever it is that Mercury and Jupiter have been talking about, whatever they are narrowing down, again, opportunity-wise, responsibility-wise, social role-wise, whatever they're helping us narrow down, both retrograde, the sun is able to kind of pick that up and start to move that into our conscious selves. Okay, let's recap all of the cards we've pulled up to this point, looking at the Leo new moon, the Sagittarius first quarter moon, last week's Pisces full moon, and now pulling cards for this Gemini third quarter moon to see what we are ready to let go of at this time. See you there. Okay, so here you can see our lineup of everything that we've pulled so far, starting with the Leo new moon, the Sagittarius first quarter moon, our Pisces full moon. If you missed out on any of these narratives, go ahead and check out these videos and meet us back here, and we will see how this lunation cycle comes to a close. Okay, let's dive in. All right, and a reminder that you can follow along and pull for yourself by heading to my website, priestessbaby.com, where I have a free PDF that contains all of these lunation tarot spreads. So, all right, and okay, so just revisiting the prompts that we'll be inquiring about today as we observe the third quarter moon upon us. We'll be asking about what is coming to a close now. We'll be looking at our previous attachment to what is ending at this time. We will look at how we are able to make meaning from this process as human beings. And lastly, what we can begin to invite in that space in this dark moon phase, once the third quarter moon passes. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at what Mercury and this cazimi and these trines to Jupiter want us to know about this time. Okay. Alrighty, so what is coming to a close now? The Two of Pentacles. Okay. So that feels very mercurial, that feels very Virgo. And when we look at the two, we are usually trying to reestablish a sense of balance in the wake of bringing something in to the fold. So as we take on new responsibilities, as we open up to new possibilities, and we saw the Ace of Pentacles at the end of our Leo new moon phase, as we were talking about new resources we might need as we were going through these changes, right? All of that Uranian energy shaking us up and really rerouting us. And so we talked about what kind of new resources, new experiences, new tangibility could we open up to about heading down this new path and sort of giving us sustenance for some of the anxiety that we saw coming up in the Nine of Swords. So it's interesting to see us closing out a Two of Pentacles. Again, being a time where things are usually starting, right? We're usually opening up to a new possibility that we see in the Ace, and we are trying to kind of recalibrate our sense of balance as we take on this new entity. So perhaps this Two of Pentacles connecting to something we are seeing end or close this month is a reflection of what we just discussed about these retrograde planets helping us to kind of narrow things down, helping us to decide what is not for us, that was on the table, to get a sense of what we're not going to be taking on moving forward. Perhaps what's coming to a close is our need to be recalibrating. So take whichever description of this feels right and applicable to your situation. But some need to rebalance is ending. We perhaps don't need to focus so much on rooting in order to grow outward. Maybe we've been doing that work. Maybe what we thought we were rooting into, we are changing our mind, or that is changing in some way. And so we can move beyond this need, this tangible representation of energy in that sense. So our previous attachment to this Two of Pentacles is the Four of Swords. I'm getting a sense that the needing to recalibrate, even though it was kind of rooted in anxiety, Yeah, that dog agrees. Rooted in anxiety, right? That we just talked about with that Nine of Swords at the Leo new moon cycle. Perhaps it's more comfortable to be in a state of anxiety about that thing. I am saying this as someone who is deeply comfortable in my own anxious cycles, and that is to say, I say this with compassion. It is much easier to be in a state of anxiety about something, to kind of need to buckle down into this state, if that's been a state that we have had to endure for some time. Maybe we've been having to balance and it's brought up anxiety, and the only way we think we can truly reach that place of recalibration is by remaining anxious about it. Remembering that anxiety often serves as a tool to help us feel like we are in control. If I can anticipate something being out of balance, if I can be hyper vigilant about this need to constantly recalibrate, then I will feel like I am managing my circumstances. Even if that's not the case, even if we are doing more harm than good. Again, a lot of compassion around this, okay? This makes a lot of sense at the third quarter moon in Gemini, square its ruler, right? We talked about that square, and Gemini can be a very anxious sign. Gemini is so overwhelmed by information. Gemini wants to have all the facts, and maybe we think that if we can keep taking in more information, then that's helpful. At a certain point, it's really not. At a certain point, more is just too much. And perhaps we've kind of been shielding ourselves in this box, right? In this state, in this sort of respite from the anxiety. Maybe we are focusing so much on the balancing as a means of trying to block out what we can't control, trying to block out what's trying to come through. But seeing as this is something that's coming to a close, it's also time to address what purpose this is serving for us now. It is very difficult, but we can choose with great concerted effort to step out of kind of what we think is protecting us. Okay. How we can make meaning from this process? Well, that's a welcome omen. Okay. And I'm compelled to think about how we ended with the Chariot at the Pisces full moon reading last week. And we got a sense that everything we were moving through at this time was helping us to tap into those unconscious forces. We discussed how that's the card of our year, and so it's the theme that we are all collectively navigating in 2023, is getting a handle on what forces are driving us so that we can willfully move ourselves forward. Okay, so it's nice to see a continuation of that narrative here in Strength, which is the card that follows the Chariot. And as we get those conscious and unconscious kind of energies into alignment, and we start to move forward in a way that feels powerful, where we can apply our strength, right? Where we can choose to move through what is in front of us, even if it feels uncomfortable. We then get a sense of what within ourselves we've been able to open conversation with. The word that came to me was tame, and that feels very, that feels a little problematic. So we are made of animalistic instincts, though, right? We are made of animalistic parts. We evolved into being humans who are conscious and who care and create systems of care. But within us all lies a beast, and that beast can take over and kind of control us just as quickly as we can intellectually try to take over these instincts and suppress them. So there is harm that can be done in both directions. And the call is to, again, open up that conversation was the phrase that I chose. Open up that conversation to be in connection with our instincts, knowing that if one of us chooses to, we could sort of strike down the other one and again overpower them. So how we can make meaning from this is that we are becoming clear on what our conscious and unconscious energies are working with, what we have been working with in this lunation cycle, getting a sense of where we are maybe taking on anxiety or leaning into anxiety that no longer serves us, or that is continuing this disconnect between our conscious and unconscious energies, and recognize that this whole process is bringing us to a place of having this conversation with ourselves, of being in touch with the mind and the body. And that feels very Gemini and Virgo as well, right? They need to be able to work together, but the body can certainly take on symptoms that overpower the mind, and the mind can certainly, again, try to over-intellectualize things that suppress the body. Okay, what we can invite in at this time. Beautiful. That Aries energy, right? The Emperor is Aries for us. We know that the North Node is traveling through Aries at this time. Our next full moon will be in Aries, and it will be unique in that it is in the sign with the North Node, but it is so early in the sign that it will not be an eclipse. We will have our full moon eclipse as the final Taurus full moon eclipse in Scorpio season. And so this might be, this distinction in this lunation might be a time for us to get clear on what the Emperor looks like for each of us. And this narrative is really beautiful because the Emperor is really powerful Aries energy that is aligned with integrity, right? So when we think about bad Aries is the impulsive one who does things instinctually that without caring about the impact on others. And good Aries will still follow those instincts, but will do so in a way that still remembers that it came from something and that it is part of something. And so there is where we see the leadership of Aries that we revere and aspire to, where Aries energy within us, and regardless of whether we have planets there or bodies there, we all have Aries somewhere in our chart. So we all have this capacity for good Aries energy within us. And this is what we are able to invite in at this time. I love that as a precursor to this Aries full moon that we'll have in our next lunation cycle that begins with the Virgo new moon. So before we know what that really looks like, right, that full moon will illuminate what the current state of that Aries house in our charts looks like. But for now, we can, knowing that we're moving along this narrative of, again, getting in touch with our instincts and building a relationship to those instincts, we are then inviting in what those instincts might lead us to, might inspire within us, might want to move toward as we move toward the Aries full moon itself. So that's beautiful. I love to think about these kind of stories continuing and informing the next lunation chapter, the next lunation cycle. So it's lovely to see something really coming to like a suspenseful buildup at this time. We're really ramping up to see something powerful emerge here. And for a lunation cycle that did begin with the Nine of Swords in it, it's really lovely to see that we've moved a bit backward, right? We had that Queen of Swords in our Pisces full moon reading, talking about that milestone of endurance. And so it's really nice to see that we can step out of some of that anxiety. We always want to step out of that anxiety. And this is an invitation to figure out how to kind of recalibrate our body and our mind. How do we reset our physical selves? How do we alleviate what's been impacting us mentally? What does this show us about our mind-body connection, our intellect-instinct connection? And how is that allowing us to invite in new possibilities to initiate in Aries moving forward? Okay, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, please like it, please share, please subscribe. We will be talking about the Virgo new moon next week, which happens the day before that Virgo Mercury stations direct. So we'll have lots to chat about then, and I hope to see you there.